talking about it as a joke, but here is his advisor, Armstrong Williams. And you'll recall that I had my run-ins with Armstrong Williams back in the day. I actually got bounced from our radio station because he and Sam Greenfield had a show in New York on before my program, which was syndicated. Theirs was local.
Armstrong doesn't play.
But I would go on, and right after their show, I would launch into Armstrong Williams' pay to play or pay for play.
Pay for play.
Where he was writing articles on behalf of, I think it was No Child Left Behind, without revealing that he was being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars by the Department of Education. And
that's a nice little racket you got going on there.
What's amazing is how, what's the word I'm looking for? How quaint that seems now. How quaint that seems, like, because the idea that he was using his position as a commentator and enriching himself simultaneously. Are you kidding me? I feel like that's already like 100 times that amount of money has already been made off the presidency by the Trump folks. Nevertheless, here's Armstrong Williams, who happens to be, I don't know, Ben Carson's confidant. Maybe now he'll be his press secretary, or who is now the secretary of HUD. And my whole theory about this is that I think Trump just sort of like, he
need a black guy head.
Need a black guy
need
head.
A black guy
I know
head.
A black guy. That's the black guy. Boom. Bis boom ba. But I think there's also, a guy like Bannon, who is, his special advisor, who has access, probably more access to him, and certainly more time than anybody else, right? Reince Priebus, he's just running around putting out fires. Mike Pence, I'm sure Bannon's just sitting there going like, the best way to get rid of something like HUD, don't attack it. Just put the most incompetent human being you could find and have him be in charge of it.
It's called Biblical Real Estate Solutions.
Right.
It's an amazing startup.
But honestly, I think this is the game plan for all of this. Just, we're going to kill half the stuff that we don't like with just sheer incompetence.
And meanwhile, there's a lot of contracts to be awarded. I mean, their whole, like, quote-unquote, real deal for urban America is a massive gentrification and tax real estate giveaway plan.
Of course.
And that's what's happening.
Of course. And Carson's just going to be sitting there going, what?
What?
But here's Armstrong Williams explaining, I don't know what, explaining why Carson didn't want to, but does, but didn't, but does. Here it is on NPR.
Joined now by a longtime advisor and friend of Ben Carson. He is conservative talk show host Armstrong Williams. Mr. Williams, thanks for being with us.
Yes, good morning.
A few weeks ago, you were quoted in media reports saying Ben Carson wasn't interested in a cabinet job. And I'm quoting now, Dr. Carson feels he has, quote, no government experience. He's never run a federal agency. The last thing he'd want to do was take a position that could cripple the presidency. Is that no longer the case?
That was never accurate, by the way.
Then definitely fill us in on what your perspective is on Dr. Carson's experience and if he is a good fit for this job.
Dr. Carson was always clear that his preference was to remain in private industry. He felt he could be more effective and supportive of the president-elect, but he also was clear that if Mr. Trump insisted that he wanted him in his cabinet, he would certainly give it serious consideration. My only comment was there are many people who spend their lives running government agencies and bureaucracies and could absolutely, they're out there that could be considered. But obviously,
Pause it.
Trump felt.
Did you see that? Like, where he's like, you got to go back a little bit. He's actually like has to catch himself from saying like, there's a lot of people out there who are much better for this job than he would be. He like literally had to stop himself from saying that. Just run it back just a little bit and go.
Joined now.
Dr. Carson was always clear that his preference was to remain in private industry. He felt he could be more effective and supportive of the president-elect. But he also was clear that if Mr. Trump insisted that he wanted him in his cabinet, he would certainly give it serious consideration.
Right.
My only comment was there are many people who spend their lives running government agencies and bureaucracies and could absolutely, they're out there that could be considered. But obviously, Mr. Trump felt Dr. Carson brought something, because there's just so many things that the media and people don't understand about Dr. Carson. If you spent the last 25 years involved with his family and his things that he's involved in, you understand that he has a lot of technical experience in areas in housing. He understands much more than you can imagine about finance and zoning and tax laws and banking policies and urban planning and these anti-discrimination laws. But Dr. Carson's position was that he preferred that if Mr. Trump could find someone that could fit the role of what he wanted, he would have preferred to stay in private industry. But that's not what Mr. Trump wanted. He wanted Dr. Carson as his cabinet, and he's glad to serve.
He's going to have to serve.
Why do they sound so similar?
Why do those two guys?
Yeah.
I bet you. I mean, that's how the con men always get the other con men.
Oh, but literally
right?
their voices are.
It's a John Miller situation,
Hi,
possibly.
this is Armstrong Williams.
I like it. Like now he's got to serve. You know, you can hear Armstrong Williams' disappointment because Armstrong Williams thought, like, I'm going to be able to tour around with Ben, and we're going to make a ton of cash. Now I'm going to have to go and get that back to getting a couple $100,000 for writing,
They're offering me 15 points on the VIG at HUD. Sorry, Armstrong. Cash money.
And I like,
I know about zoning.
It seems to me if someone says to me, if I read off a quote to somebody without, I don't want the person from NPR to get away with the scot-free either. If I read a quote to you and you say that's inaccurate, my next question should be, in what way?
Oh, in all sorts
You
of
just
ways.
got to do one follow-up on that. And then be like, oh, well, in that case, completely state whatever, let me allow you to spin now. And even then, the guy couldn't even do that.
All I was trying to say is that there's clearly a plethora of people who would be more excuse me.
Exactly.
He knows about zoning.
He spent a lot of time on finance. And
He also mentioned something about anti-discrimination laws. Did you catch that?
yeah,
Yeah, that's disturbing.
he knows how fake and false.
I only wish I could have been there to speak out on behalf of your father not renting units to black people, Donald.
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.